Okay, so a couple times now you've heard me mention the word buyer's premium, or should I say the term buyer's premium. There is a legal definition for this, and I'm going to talk to you about it today in layman's terms and explain to you about what a buyer's premium means. So for the past 30 or 40 years here in the United States, auctioneers have used a buyer's premium. So why do we do so? It is a way to help the seller offset the expenses in marketing the sale. In most situations in real property and or personal property dealings that I've had, we market the property excessively. Now it's very, very important to any seller out there that is looking to sell your personal property or business assets or real property. Marketing is key to finding current market price, the highest and best market price available. So how do we do that? We aggressively get out, whether we're using social media, we still use print advertising, we may do a press release or a public interview, or we're out there in the community talking to people about there is a product, an asset, a piece of property that we have to sell. And a seller says, well, I want to maximize my investment, and we get into talking about commissions and what does a commission cost and how much do you charge for your services. So as an auctioneer, many years ago, I learned how to utilize the term called buyer's premium in practical application. So let's cut to the chase. This is what it means. When we sell a piece of real property or we sell a piece of personal property, the buyer is going to pay a commission to our company, real estate broker or auctioneer, for performing that service. The buyer always asks, why should I do that? Now I mentioned just a minute ago that the seller is looking to minimize expenses. Therefore, they're relying on our judgment, our expertise, our marketing to be able to push that product. The number one goal is to find the current market price. So I'm doing my job to find the current market price, and it costs dollars and cents to make that happen. The seller may not be willing to pay those dollars and cents, so we offset that price by using the buyer's premium. So the buyer ultimately pays a commission for our services. Now, almost every day of the week, the buyer says, why is that beneficial to me as a buyer? Now, let's look at that because it's a very, very important question. As a buyer, your job is to save as much money as you can. The seller's job is to make as much money as you can. So here I am, I'm in the middle, I'm the mediator. How do we bring the meeting of the minds together so we can write a contract so we can make that happen? So let's come on back down to the buyer's premium. You, the buyer, has to pay that buyer's premium at the end of the sale. And you say, well, I don't want to do it because it doesn't make any sense. Indulge with me for just another few seconds. Now, remember what I said about the buyer wanting to make the best deal possible? So in a competitive marketplace, let's just use $100. So there's an item that is worth $100, and you've done your research online and you know that it's worth $100, but you're in the business to make a little bit of money. Or you want this item, or you want this house, or you want this piece of real estate for your personal use. It could be a ranch, it could be a luxury home, it could be your first home. You want to make the best deal possible, but you got to pay this buyer's premium. Okay, so let's back up. You have done your research, you know what the product is worth within a few percentage points plus or minus, but you have the other attributing factors in this where there is other offers on the property. You have to think, those buyers want to make the best deal as well. So let's use this $100. We have a $100 item, and you say, well, you know what? I've got to pay this buyer's premium, so I'm going to bid a lot less. And you bid 70 bucks. Okay, that's a good start. The other person bids 75. You say it's still worth this to me. I'm going to bid 80, 85, 90. You're the winning bidder at $90. originally you were willing to pay $100 in your mind. But during the auction process and utilization of the buyer's premium, we have demonstrated to the seller that the buyer was willing to pay $90 and the cost, which almost reached $100, but not quite, because in this equation what's happened is this process saved you about maybe $10. So, or actually more in this equation is $1, because you bid $90, and let's just say the buyer's premium was 10%. You add that 10% to your price, that's $99 that you have paid. We've saved you $1. Now, just multiply the numbers, and the bigger the numbers, the bigger the savings. But let's look at it in a different perspective. Remember all of those other buyers that was making competitive offers against you, and you're saying, okay, I think that this product is worth $100, but I'm not real sure. It's an antique, but we really don't know, but it's going to look good on my mantelpiece. Is it really worth $100? So what happens if you bid 90, somebody bids the 95, you bid 100, somebody bids 105, you bid 110, somebody bids 115, you bid 120. Now, why did you bid 120? Because you really wanted that item, because there was demonstration of value from the other participating bidders. Now, it's hard to imagine that you may pay that $120 when the last bidder said, well, I'm only paying 70 or 80 bucks for it, and that may be all it's worth. Now, the demonstration is through the other competitive offers, you're saying I'm willing to pay just a little bit more. It's worth $120. Yes, I will pay the additional commissions because it is worth it to me. So either you're buying it as an investment, you can set your numbers down, you can line them up and stick to those numbers. If you want it for more of a personal business use and you think that you can make money, or it's an investment, maybe you pay just a little bit more. But remember this, the buyer's premium works for the seller, the buyer's premium works for the buyers. And if used correctly, and if you understand this term going into a multiple offer situation and you have to pay the buyer's premium, you'll be more informed. So as we continue to talk about the buyer's premium, I had a very, very important question asked of me. Is this something that is typically utilized when buying real estate or other property? You will not find this in most instances if you're not buying at auction. Now, a lot of realtors have asked me this same question. Why would the buyer pay the commission? Well, there's no law that says that the buyer can't pay the commission. In most state contracts or in most situations, real estate brokers, agents, and auctioneers, we explain to all of the parties involved that this is a cost. It is announced up front. And if you go to an auction, I suggest that you read these terms and conditions. I suggest that you sit down, maybe you call or you send the auctioneer a message and say, is there a buyer's premium that is excess to my bid? That is a very important question, because if you don't read the terms and it is laid out and explained in the terms, you're going to be responsible for that. But I want to make this very clear that it is a legal way of doing business. We as auctioneers want you to understand what's being applied to the rules. If a buyer pays the commission, it is perfectly okay. If the seller pays the commission, it is perfectly okay. All of these things are negotiated in advance. That's why I will say one more time, look at the terms and conditions. Read those terms and conditions. If you're a real estate broker and you say, wait a minute, auctioneers have been using this buyer's premium for 3 or 4 decades, why don't real estate agents use it? Well, it is a simple explanation as that in the auction industry, through practices and seminars and countless hours of continuing education, and through great organizations such as state auctioneer associations and the National Auctioneers Association, these things are taught as useful ways to be effective in a competitive market. In the National Association of Realtors, there is a book that is written about how to use auctions. But many real estate agents may not have looked at that part of the National Association of Realtors curriculum. So what I'm saying here today is it's available, and it is a useful tool. It is a useful resource, especially when you're out there and you're trying to win the deal as a listing agent. If I told, and I've told countless agents this because I've taught in several forums, and I always say, when I go to do a listing presentation, and I've told real estate agents this in this continuing education setting, that if the seller is looking for proposals, and I sit down in front of that seller and I tell that seller that, okay, utilize my method of selling. I'm a real estate broker, I'm a licensed auctioneer. However, my terms may be different because I'm going to save you 80, 90, 95% of those commissions. They are going to listen. So therefore, we utilize that buyer's premium as a tool to help that seller set their sales budget. And understand this, they may be willing to sell for less. Let's go back to that, and I want to talk in the terms of real estate because I talked about a $100 example. Now I'm going to talk about a $100,000 example, and you can multiply it out however that you wish. A person list their property at $100,000. They have to pay the commission of some percentage if listed with a real estate broker. So that's going to be expense on the seller. Whatever that commission is, whatever's negotiated, it happens. It's going to come out of the seller's side on that closing statement. The real estate broker is paid, yada, yada, yada. That money goes in a different direction. However, if they can realize that same $100,000 in a situation where I'm talking about where the buyer is having to pay the commission, guess what? What if it only brings $95,000 or $96,000 or $98,000? What if it brings $99,000? It wasn't the $100,000 that they were expecting. The buyer may have saved, some money. However, the seller looks at it and says, hey, I do not have to pay those 80 or 90% of commissions, maybe 100% of the commissions that I would have paid if that had to come out of my side on the closing statement being paid to the broker. So it can be looked at in different ways. What my suggestion is, anyone who has a question about how to use the buyer's premium, talk to your local auctioneer. If you want to speak with me, because I sell nationwide, I'll go anywhere in the United States and sell a piece of property or personal property, and I can explain to you as a seller and or a buyer how the buyer's premium may benefit you in your sale or purchase of real or personal property.